I agree.
Of course. Okay. Right, so we're back in open and we're moving along the agenda to number 5, the consent agenda. Can I have someone move the consent agenda? Moved by Director Crompton, seconded by Director Birch Jones. Anyone opposed? Motion carried.
Trust.
All right, any business arising from the minutes? Seeing none. We'll move along to 7.1, EAD committee recommendations of November 9th. This is a request for decision.
Mr. Phillips. Come back with this.
So it's no questions. Yeah.
Okay, great. So the report is there before you regarding the Canada Community Building Fund, Community Works Fund request for the Britannia Beach Fire Hall Training House. And this is to fund up to $50,000 from Electoral Area D to construct a firefighting training house within the training yard. Does anyone have any questions? Go ahead.
Just wondering what sort of coordination or conversation is had with Squamish about using the Squamish's training yard, or if there's opportunities there.
Yeah, maybe I'll defer to Rob first, if you'd like.
Oh, yeah.
Regional Fire Chief.
Thank you. Chief Van Doren, welcome and thank you for being here today. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Britannia does train with Squamish on a regular basis, particularly for live fire, and recently conducted through vendor Fireworks is the training vendor, search and rescue exercises. I think the key for this particular prop for Britannia, I think in order for Britannia to be effective interior attack firefighters, the JPRs that they need to hit, it's all going to be about iteration and repetition. So it'll be an invaluable invaluable asset for Britannia in terms of a whole variety of stuff, a regional level asset that Garibaldi can use as well, from conducting a rescue, forcible entry, reading smoke, ventilation, entanglement props are another key, also ladder work. It's going to be an invaluable tool, but Britannia will continue to partner with Squamish for live fire training because they have an NFPA 1402 certified burn building, which Britannia does not. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I think so. Just want to make sure we're not sort of building unnecessarily redundant infrastructure. If it's
This is sort of the day-to-day, week-to-week kind of training that makes a lot of sense and serves the community really well for repetitive. Go ahead.
If I could just add to what Rob said, one thing we need to keep in mind is as Furry Creek's developed, we have a lot more training needed for people that we bring on there. And so I think it's important that we can do a lot of it in our own area rather than always having to go somewhere else.
Director Matt.
Yeah, I think it's very important to remember too, you don't want to have trucks moving all over the place when it's not necessary. Having that training facility at their location is, as the chief says, invaluable. So I completely support this.
Okay. Seeing no other questions, would someone like to move the recommendation? Moved by Director Rainbow, seconded by Director Crompton. Comments? Is there anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, 7.1.2, development variance application 172 in area D. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, would anyone like to move the recommendation? Moved by Director Demers, seconded by Director Rainbow. Comment? Is anyone opposed? Motion carried. That was the first that, and then the second is that the CA will be authorized to execute the permit. Moved by Director Demers, seconded by Director Rainbow. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Right, 7.1.3, request for funding from the Lillooet Friendship Center Society Food Bank donations. Any questions about this? Seeing none, would anyone like to move the recommendation? Moved by Director Jones, seconded by Director Demers.
My hand was up
I
way
was
before.
way up for
Mayor Crompton.
I'd like, just a comment, yeah. At our last EAD meeting, we also used more of our funds that we have and basically doubled this.
Thank you.
It seems like a particularly difficult time for many reasons. And so I'm really proud of us for doing this. I think it's great.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you. I'll call the question. Is there anyone opposed? Motion carries. Moving along to, this is just for Area C and Village of Pemberton. So everyone else, keep your hands down. Moved by Director Richmond, seconded by Director Mack. No one else vote. Are they two separate things? They can all go together. I'll call the question. Is there anyone opposed? Carried. Thank you.
I'll move 7.2.2 as well.
Okay, thank you. And seconded by Director Mack. Is there anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving along to 8.1. This is the Lillooet Lake Estates and Heather Jean Properties Land Use Contract Bylaw and proposed zoning and OCP amendments for third and referrals. Does anyone have any questions? We have Ms. Mead up here for questions. If anyone seeing no questions, would anyone like to move the recommendation?
I will move option 1
Okay,
of the recommendation.
okay, and a seconder to that, Director Rich Jones. Comment? Is there anyone comment?
Just wondered with Director Needham here, I just saw the comments from Kiera Freely saying we're changing the zoning and then we're just gonna have to change it back again. And it was sort of a criticism and I didn't really understand what that was getting at, or I just wanted a bit more explanation on that comment.
Ms. Needham?
Through the chair. I think the comment was with respect to the proposed mitigation works for the debris flow hazard. And I think what he was suggesting is that we should just change the zoning now, and at this point, our legal does not feel, legal consultants don't feel comfortable with that. Once the mitigation measures are constructed and in place and we have geotechnical review and when we are assured that the site is safe, then we can look at changing the zoning at that time. And so there could be another zoning change, but it'll be once we know that the site is safe.
Okay, so it's onerous, but it's the safest course for minimizing our liability.
That's right. This has been fully reviewed by our legal consultants.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I'll call the question. Is there anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Needham. 8.2, design guidelines for affordable and multifamily housing, OCP amendments. anyone have any questions? Go ahead.
Do you foresee, I mean, it's pretty fresh, but all the announcements that were made by the new premier, do you think any of, maybe not this specifically, but any of our legislation or supporting regulations are going to need to be amended in response?
I had a look at the recommendations that were being made by Premier Eby, and I don't see anything that directly affects us.
Okay.
We will wait for changes to the Local Government Act, but it looks to me as though a lot of it's happening at the strata level.
Okay.
And very clearly was outlined that it does not apply to regional districts at this time. Which is the only thing that was super clear.
So that was
All right. Okay. Okay, so with this, many that's, we're gonna do the 3 that's that apply to third reading. Can I have someone move? Moved by Director Stoner, seconded by Director Birch Jones. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. And then the 3 that's that are for adoption, moved by Director Mack, seconded by Director Rainbow. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Okay. 8.3 zoning amendment bylaw, housekeeping and sorry, I'm distracted by that. We have Miss Needham here for, we have Ms. Colin Brander coming in. She is in the waiting room, but just for questions. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Does anyone have any questions regarding 8.3? Seeing none, would someone like to make the motion as laid out that we rescind and then post the notice as laid out? Moved by Director Mack, seconded by Director Rainbow. Comments? Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Okay. 8.4, this is a request for decision regarding the financial plan bylaw amendment bylaw. And we have Ms. LaFrance. Yes. Okay. All right. Good morning, Ms. LaFrance. Thank you for being here. Does anyone have any questions regarding this amendment? No questions. Would someone like to move the recommendation? 3 readings. 3 readings. Sorry, first, second, and third. And we'll move to adoption, right? Moved by Director Mack, seconded by Director Demare. Comments? Is there anyone opposed? Motion carries. And would someone move the adoption? Moved by Director Stoner, seconded by Director Mack. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. All right, we'll move along to 9.1 CAO verbal update.
Nothing at this time, Chair.
Okay. We're moving too fast.
We're done by lunch.
All right.
1 o'clock.
Yeah, we're super efficient. Someone said to me, there's another regional district over on the island and they do their whole meeting in 3 hours. And I was like, wow, that's great. But they meet 4 times a month.
Oh, yeah, I know.
So
We're not doing that?
it's not. All right, we're gonna skip 9.2 because that is a timed presentation. We'll move along to 9.3, appointments, standing committees, select committees, and external organizations.
Yes, so I could go through and list the ones that need appointments. Some are kind of automatic. New Control Committee. Director Mac was on that committee. All directors are eligible.
Director Mack, do you want to stay the appointed member of the new Quantual intergovernment? Yep. Okay.
Northern Statlium.
Yep.
That was last year was Director Birch Jones and Director DeMare.
Makes sense. Are you both happy to stay on that?
Yes, yep.
Okay.
The Policy and Development Review Committee, which did not meet in 2022. And I'm not sure it met in 2021.
No.
But we typically have 4. Director Birch Jones, Director Mack, Director Ford, and Director Compton were the appointees last year.
Okay, everyone comfortable with that? I suspect we probably will meet this year. Yes, we will meet this year. Question?
Yeah, just I'll use this as sort of the trigger to the question, but with the additional the growth of the board, does the membership need to be adjusted in any way to reflect that larger sort of entity growing?
Yeah.
And has that been considered or need to be considered in any of these appointments?
Good questions.
I don't believe there's terms of reference for this committee, so we're kind of just, the board can, if there's more people that want to be on it.
Yeah, I was just curious what
Yeah.
consideration that was given in these various appointments in the general sense. So, but if it hasn't been, that's fine. I don't see a particular problem. I was just curious where we were at with.
Yeah, I think
I'm
that's
just
a great
wondering on
question.
that one, if we shouldn't have somebody from Squamish.
Yeah, yeah. Who would like to do it? Do you have any comments to this before we go to that?
It's up
Okay.
it's up to the board, yeah.
You want to do it? I'm happy to jump in. Okay. Sounds good. We'll add you. Thank you. Yeah.
You don't need a motion or anything, we can just.
We'll
decide
do one
at
motion for
the
all the
end.
appointments at the end. Unless there's any like.
Dispute.
Yeah. Okay.
Solid.
Well, yeah, just to make sure I understand where we're at. So
Wait.
with this one, there wasn't a defined number, so we can just appoint someone else. That's fine. Okay.
That's right. Yeah.
Fine.
Tiebreaker vote.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, next was.
Solid Waste Management Plan Monitoring Advisory Committee.
Oh, yeah, I put my hand up for that one.
So that was Director Birch Jones and Director Mack last year.
Okay,
And we typically look for one director from the north and one director from the south.
okay. Do you both want to stay in that?
Absolutely, it's the most glamorous title I have.
Director Mack, are you happy to stay on that?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. Everyone comfortable with that? You want to challenge it, Jack?
We've got 2 votes.
All right.
Sure about you.
So we have the Fraser Basin Council,
Ah,
which last year was Director Rainbow with Director Crompton as the alternate.
Yeah, Director Rainbow would prefer not to be on that. One of the reasons was that their meetings clashed with EAD committee meetings, and it was, I couldn't do it. So it would actually be better if it was somebody other than a director.
Would you be 2 IC?
Oh, don't, what, just flip us around there?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fine, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not that many meetings, but.
It's true, yeah.
Yeah, there are. Okay, you're comfortable with that? Everyone else comfortable with that? Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Fraser Basin Council, the Thompson Regional Committee, which last year was Director Birch Jones with Director Damaris Yelp.
Is the same conflict present as far as meetings?
no, not usually, no. Thank you, I quite enjoy those meetings. beyond that. Yeah.
Awesome. We skipped the flood control committee. Area C or area G board.
Is my copy?
Sarah, do you want to change? Do you want to be the leader?
Nope.
Thank you, Grace.
It's more to.
Actually, well,
Okay.
we actually meet.
I can get right out of the
It's
agenda this morning. Anyway,
That's weird, so did I.
Viking district
I don't have Bridgeford.
Mid
Yeah.
River and flood control.
Yeah.
on the middle.
So do I. Okay, so it's here. I don't know where it's-
Okay.
Says administrative. So, thank you, Flood Control Committee, which is now administered by the city of Chilliwack. And in 2022, that was Director Mack with Director Richmond as the alternate.
You happy to stay on the flood control?
Yeah. that's fine.
Okay. Thank you. You're happy to stay. as
All
the
the
alternate?
water that goes.
Thank you. Okay, carrying on to House Sound Community Forum. Mine was highlighted, yours isn't.
Well,
There's two of them. There's two house and community.
Okay, the Ocean Watch, right? So for the. Yes, so there's no contest. You're both staying. You have no choice.
Wow.
It's in the eligibility. You have to appoint area Z and area B. All right,
Yeah, but do they have to accept?
yes.
They're required to accept. Wow, all right.
But the Ocean Watch can be or.
We'll
See,
arm wrestle
or-
for that. one.
Or Doug Grace. Doug Grace was it? He was.
Oh, yeah.
This is election.
No, he represented us.
So
On
this is
Ocean
for the
Watch.
Ocean Watch
No,
Action
no,
Plan
yeah,
task.
because he was Squamish.
Yeah, then Chris was.
And then now. it's
He just happened to be sitting here and reported to us, but he was appointed by Squamish.
Okay, it was a long, it was before your time for all of you. I was,
That topic.
Okay, very funny.
I've been long,
Senior.
very long. time.
Order. I will not use again.
I love using the gun.
All right,
Yeah.
let's move along to the Lillooet, Lillooet.
So no appointments. Or is that?
We'll keep Tony in that.
Thank you.
Fine with that.
What am I doing? Oh,
You're doing the Ocean Watch,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. Area Association, the library. Viv?
I'm completely happy. These guys do schedule their meetings that conflict with our regular fourth Wednesday of the month, generally SLRD. But they are so good at providing me with all the information and everything is running so well and I meet with the director on the side. I'm quite happy staying here.
Okay, thank you. All right, next is Lower Mainland Local Governments. I think it's LMLGA.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so Chris, you're third, you're director at large, or you're third vice? Director at large, which is awesome. But we do also get an appointment there and how often are those meeting?
They're all being, you can attend online now, whenever you want.
There
Oh,
are
yeah,
a
'cause
certain
you're
number that
past
are in
president.
person though. Can't remember what the
Three,
number is.
but if you had to, you could attend.
Oh, yeah, you're past president, so you're back at the.
I am the
Past.
forever past president. Seriously, I've been there
Yeah.
for.
4 years.
4 years.
Yeah, as past president for 4. Yeah,
A little ridiculous.
yeah, it is ridiculous. I'm just really good at the job though.
Yes.
So, who would like to be our appointee? Hermit? You would like to be the appointee? Okay,
We are gonna take over the. board.
dominating.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah.
All right.
Good.
Comfortable with that?
No, go ahead. I just want to go back one.
Oh, sure.
We just get the.
Yeah, finish this one up.
Oh, sorry.
No.
Okay, so we need an alternate to the SLR, to the appointment to the LMLGA. Director Mack. Thank you.
That's Director Mac's favorite job. He has not had to attend a single meeting.
That's all we've got.
Oh, yeah, I'll take that one.
Okay, we're going back to,
6 minutes.
Little Road Traffic Advisory Committee.
yes,
So we've got a new one that our MLA leads. And I'd like to plug that one in there. And replace that one, because,
Or call it this.
well, I think she calls it the Lillooet Area Local Government Advisory Committee.
okay,
And,
Instead of having an
and you're gonna
advisory-
start one now for the south, right?
That's right, yes.
So maybe those two should be plugged into this thing. Cause it's Lillooet also. For ours. So it's area A, area B, Lillooet. Shalat, First Nations, RCMP,
BC Hydro.
Maudie,
Pretty good. It's an effective committee.
very effective.
What's this acronym?
yes, it must have a clever name. Come up with a clever name.
Lillooet.
Well, we gotta call it what it is, what Jackie calls it. I can give you.
So this would be electoral area A or electoral area B. District of Lillooet has their own,
No, they're part of it.
but does the District of Lillooet appoint a person
We did,
to that
yes,
committee?
yes,
Yeah.
it was Barbara.
So A or B?
Appointed for that.
And is
So
there
they
a-
can't both be on it, because they're both on this one. But we're
No,
saying
A-
this is a separate committee appointment.
This Lillooet Rural Traffic Advisory Committee is not active and hasn't been active for a long time.
Okay.
It's just kind of hung on there.
Okay,
So if there's two appointments,
It's called Lillooet Elected Representative Road Committee Meeting.
elected representative. Okay, so.
So can you both be on it?
That's well named.
Oh, yeah.
Director.
okay, so they're both on it. So really is
Just change the
Just
name.
replace.
serving the same, yeah.
I was just gonna ask, how long do we leave committees on the list if they haven't been active? They're forever committees, once they've been created. They can't be active.
Long-
Why would you disband?
They're relevant.
Yeah.
Director Matt,
Yeah, just, I've been following Sal with this, and Area C should actually be on that committee too, because of the Highline Road.
And the Duffy.
Well. Yeah.
Okay, we're not.
Yeah. But definitely for the Highline. Because that way, I think more action would be taken on that road when we need it graded and all that kind
Yeah,
of stuff.
we actually get a report. She gives a report. And the Highland is on it. The Maudie rep.
I think we should add Russell to that committee.
okay, do we need a motion to request that he be appointed to the committee?
So moved.
Is that how you would like to handle it? Or just add him and tell them?
Well, we can't, it's Jack's committee.
It's Jackie's committee.
Yeah, but
Yeah, the way I got BC Hydro and Shalat and the RCMP on it, I requested them to be on it. She said yes.
Okay,
So they attend and BC Hydro is their project manager that is on it.
I'm sure Area C would be welcome.
okay,
thank you. Just to,
Where's that?
should the board then write a letter to request the inclusion of area C in that entity? Would that be the formal way to sort of move that forward?
Theo, Bill.
Sorry, I was just gonna recommend, I think this can just happen. I don't think there needs to be any administrative or other action here. I think it'll just happen.
Okay,
We could do that, but I just don't think it's required. And if we don't have to do something,
If it's informal, then that's,
Yeah.
we can just.
okay,
And this committee doesn't require, any SLRD staff, time or resources, and it works quite well, so.
But you're talking about Sam coming on, right?
yes, we will add
Oh, yeah.
in terms of participation. Yeah. Same with the southern
Okay.
portions too.
That would be an improvement.
Okay, we're good. Moving along.
Thank you.
The Metro Van Indigenous Relations Committee. That's highlighted on my sheet. I know you that.
I do, I don't know what I have here.
It was on this one before.
Well, it's flood control. Oh, I guess that's moved up. Okay, I know. Okay, yes, Metro Van.
Okay.
So that was Director Rainbow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Be. You want to stay there?
I'm fine if somebody else is going to do that, and I didn't stand out.
Okay.
How
Anyone?
often do they meet?
Oh. Over the last couple of years, it's been strange, you know, there's been, what do you call it? Zoom types of things. I haven't been to Burnaby for, well, not last year for sure.
Yeah.
Well, the year before.
No, we occasionally receive correspondence from them about work that they're doing, but I don't think there's very many meetings.
You don't get agendas either, because we're on there as an observer and not as a full participant.
Right. Okay. Do you want to join that? Do you want Tony to stay there? Tony, you happy to stay there?
Did Janice say I have to stay here?
Thank you. All right. MFA is the chair and vice chair. MIA, we have Russell Mack. You happy to stay there?
Pardon me?
Are you happy to stay there?
Yes.
With the alternate as Mike Richmond, happy to stay there?
Sure.
Thank you. Anyone want to fight for it? All right. I don't have any other highlighted ones on the list. And then the next. Shall we carry on?
Motion to make
Or
all
is that it?
appointments.
We did it. Look at that.
So maybe at some future time, and I'm just picking up on the comment from over there, maybe look at some of these other things that are on there. And
Yes.
they're absolutely necessary, and also consider, are there things that should be added to that?
Right.
Is there a committee we should have that we don't? I don't know.
Tomorrow.
Part of the governance review.
Exactly.
Part of the governance
Okay.
review will
Excellent.
reevaluate these. And I think it would also be useful for future to have when the meetings are, you know, so that we can make informed choices of who's where and all of that. So with that, I'll ask for a motion to approve the appointments as discussed, moved by Director Demare, seconded by Director Jones. Further comments? Thank you to everyone who's put in a lot of time on these boards, and look forward to lots of reporting back from each of these appointments as we go forward. With that, I'll call the question. Is there anyone opposed? Motion carries.
Just noticing, Pemberton appointed people to the hospital board. But Squamish, I don't think did in our letters, but I don't remember that coming to our agenda. So I'm not sure if that's something we should do or.
I didn't have that on my.
Yeah.
The board.
But it's a,
Council meeting?
oh,
They have to do it at their council meeting.
Council meeting.
Right, okay.
Wasn't on my list.
Are they all?
We should just blow them over like that.
Yeah.
It would be-
We haven't used, I don't think we've done them as a separate motion. We've always just carried over.
Great. Okay, we don't have a board meeting. District this.
Does Whistler make a separate motion? No.
Because you're not gonna appoint members that are not on this board.
Well, we could, couldn't you?
You
I
could.
mean, it's a separate board.
It'd be
You could, we
awkward.
just set it up so that it would flow in together, so it's a
Yeah.
natural appointment.
But if the council wanted to say, yeah,
Yeah,
we want these people on the regional district, these people on the hospital, they could.
So is that two? Is it two?
does that change? Does their vote?
Or is it?
All three?
I'll confirm,
We'll come
but I
for
think
next
it'll
one.
flow right.
If it's
in.
just a de facto, then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Great.
As far as the
9.3.
number.
9.4. The board meeting calendar and office closure. Isn't it nice having a week of the office being closed and staff being able to just not have to worry about? That's great. Moved by Director Cronin, seconded by Director Birch Jones. Any comments?
Staff are all okay with being told that that's when they take their vacation or time in lieu. Everyone's happy with that. That's terrific.
CEO Felton.
Through the chair, yes.
And everyone has to leave their computers at their desk and not bring them home and work on the week, no?
There's vacation requests already in.
Great. Okay. With that, I'll call the question. Anyone opposed? Motion carried.
Staff is gonna move the next one.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Holy smokes. All right, let's do the board round table. We have, bunch of them. And we have 1:00 and 1:15. Minutes on. Let's start in area A,
Okay,
2 minutes.
one thing I mentioned at the EAD meeting last time, was that in my working career, we always, a different environment, of course, but we always talk safety first and got that out, and then recognition. And when you did recognition, you actually had to talk to the person that you were going to recognize prior to bringing it out. And so I'm going to start that for myself.
Okay.
So with road safety, I traveled Route 40 the other day to Lillooet and back. And we'd start, well, before I was a director, I led a road safety committee with Marty, and we co-chaired it. And one of the things I did was talked about near misses. So back then, I actually created a survey for near misses on Road 40. Because for every one death, you'll have about 20 major incidents where people have to go to the hospital. And then you get up to 1,000 near misses. And it's the near misses that actually help prevent if you can document them and come up with recommendations so they don't happen again. But anyway, the BRCA took that survey and now it's public. And I submitted 3 items. One was a logging truck coming at probably 20 kilometers over the speed limit for that corner. This was to slow down, speed was 60. And I couldn't believe my eyes. Luckily, I was in my lane, but he actually made it around, but the speed he was going was crazy. So that was submitted. There were also a BC Hydro truck, very similar, but he was in the middle of the road and he swerved and missed me. And a public vehicle, same as that BC Hydro truck, that was in the middle of the road and not on their side of the road. So those 3 were submitted. There was a section of gravel road just before you hit the dam when you're going to Lillooet. It's 8 kilometers long. And I couldn't believe the shape of it. It was full of potholes. And the potholes are so bad that the logging trucks, you could actually see them were weaving one side of the road to the other to miss the potholes. So I reported that to the body regional manager, Dawson Road Maintenance, quality control person, and they have an online request form that I filled in and sent. And they finally replied, and it was graded, finally graded. But should never got to that point. So that's my safety stuff. Recognition is Sandra Griffiths. She is the Maudie Regional Manager up in Williams Lake for our area. And we have these meetings about every 4 months, our MLA elected official meeting. And she is fully prepared. We have a template that we use, and she's got something for pretty well everything that we have in that template, and updates us really, really well. And I thanked her for it. The Braylor Recreation Area is basically takes up a whole mountain, Sunshine Mountain, where the old Braylor and Ski Hill was on. And the people that have worked on that since about 1973, it's just been amazing. And it's finally a recreation site. And they got a section 56 and section 57 on it. And we actually got funding through NDIT and the SLRD and some fundraising that they did, a total of about 150,000, and they built 3 brand new trails, all legally. All the cultural heritage studies were done. The environmental studies were done on that whole property. It's just amazing. And I gave them $500,000 for recreation, for a recognition event. And they're going to hold it next spring. That's it.
Thank you. Prompted.
Thank you, Chair. Last night we had our Civic Service Awards in Worcester, which is nice. We had it at the SLCC. We celebrate all the people who volunteer in our committees. And then we have 3 people that are sort of specially recognized. So 2 people from our development corporation, Al Potker and Emily Taylor, were both celebrated. Then Chelsea Walker, who ran Worcester Adaptive Sports Program for probably 15 years. And has now transitioned, and she is going to be the CEO of the Whistler portion of the Invictus Games. So she's setting up all of the work that's going to happen in Whistler. So we celebrated those 3 people, which was, I thought, really special and nice to be able to do with that group of people. I think like probably many of you, the last couple of weeks have been full of sort of getting back to work and figuring out where we're going to find ourselves as individual members of council, what boards we're going to be on, and reconnecting with the work, because elections take a month, I think month and a half, which is a long time to be away. Whistler opens tomorrow. And the gondola should be ready for the holiday season, which is exciting news. The tow line was stuck in LA for a while on a ship, and stuck in Vancouver for a while on a ship, and it got up to Whistler, I think 5 days ago. And so everyone's sort of driving by Creekside to check whether they're going to be able to ski this winter. It's exciting that it's going to be done. And then one other big announcement that happened, Worcester Blackcomb announced that they're going to be replacing the Fitzsimmons chair out of the village next year, which will really increase the upload capacity for the community. The winter looks very busy, very, very, very busy at this point. So tourism's back. Thank you, Chair.
Director Burgess-Jones.
Thank you. Yes, those meetings with MLA Taggart, and particularly she gets really amazing support from Lori Elon, who is her staff person. They're very efficient. So that's a good thing. I did attend the SWIM's annual general meeting, and it's phenomenal, the amount of momentum they have and how busy the pool is. I'm really pleased. I do have, by the way, I just made a note about this, the schedules for Fraser Basin Council meetings that are coming up and also the Northern Development Initiative Trust meetings. So those should go on our calendar too, I think, so that We don't have scheduling conflicts if we're in control as SLRD staff, that is. And the Thompson-Nicola Regional District Hospital have unfortunately scheduled a couple right at the same time as SLRD meetings are, but had a stern word with them. That's not supposed to happen again. So we really need to provide Thompson-Nicola Regional District with our newly approved schedule of meetings. The public hearing that I attended with you, Director Mack, on the properties in Area C and also the affordable housing bylaws, I thought that was really well managed by the staff. And I actually meant to say something to Director Needham here because I thought, and particularly with me, because I was back and forth on that bylaw a little bit and they were fine with that and things and changed them again. And I thought that went pretty well. Yeah, what else? I'm surprised we're here already. Oh, the park bylaw. Melanie Helmer is doing some amazing work, which you will see the fruit of after, I believe, the next EAB meeting. Will probably come forward to the board, but I really like how we're doing the work on that behind the scenes so that by the time that draft bylaw hits this table, I will be happy with it as far as Area B goes, and I'll be ready to hear criticisms and corrections and suggestions from everyone else. That'll be a really refreshing experience for me, and I'm grateful for that. And we also did work through the redrawing of the service area boundaries for the radio, and the Pavilion Lake group are quite happy, and I attended their AGM a couple of nights ago and that went well. So that's another sort of piece of good news from Area B. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Mack.
Yeah, just briefly, I'd like to congratulate everybody for getting re-elected and look forward to the next 4 years. There's lots of good stuff happening and will happen. Just like to thank staff for and naming Melanie Helmer for her work on parks and on Lillooet Lake Estates. Very important stuff. Mark and Craig on Reed Road and Craig for getting the whole thing together. It's really important stuff. And I really want to see those folks looked after in a satisfactory way, which I know they will be. These guys are doing a great job. So thanks for that.
Stoner, on behalf of Squamish.
Thank you through the chair. Kind of like Director Compton, we're resetting the table with the new council. So although we have quite a few returning faces around our council table, 5 of us are returning with 2 new folks. Armin is in a new role as mayor, but was previously around the council table as a councillor. So although we are trying to bring our 2 new folks up to speed and slow things down so that we don't totally overwhelm them with all the information. So we are going through orientation again and just kind of getting into our group with the new folks around the table. So that's been interesting. We have still been able to move some work forward. We had our first formal regular business meeting this past week. Sorry, that was last week. And we are still moving ahead with our budget. So a few years ago, we moved our budget timeline up so that we could adopt our budget by the end of December and give our staff more runway. It looks like we'll still be on track for that. So we're doing our public engagement for our budget next Tuesday. And we'll look for adoption by the end of December. So there haven't been any huge red flags with new council members taking a full left turn on our proposed budget, which is nice. And a few other just like community updates. There's been a lot of wildlife interactions in Squamish. We had 2 folks that were swatted at by aggressive bears in the estuary. So we've closed the estuary trails. Connected. Yeah, it's not, yeah, full connection. There's also been a few cougar encounters, not directly with people, but there was a deer carcass left by a cougar on our our rec fields in the middle of town at Brennan Park. So they're active right now before the temperatures drop, and so that's always interesting and keeps people on their toes. Don't know if my other colleagues want to speak to anything in particular in Squamish, but a high level update.
That's great.
Okay, thank you. Right, Director Hopple.
Thank you. So November 7th was our inauguration, so I was officially mayor for what, 2.5 weeks now. We've got 3 new councillors and Barb Weeb is returning councillor. So a lot of learning curve there. We had our first sit down together and training session. So we hired Christine Benty and she came to town and we spent the day with her. So that was really good. She's, as we all know, just a real innovator when it comes to teaching like that and training sessions. November 4th, we did the legal online presentation by Squamish-Lillooet. I don't know if you guys tuned into that, but that was a really great presentation too. It was all day. It was virtual, but it was really well done too. You know, we have a lot of, it's hard the first 6 months, a lot of learning to do. But I think that we have a new, very diverse council, and I think Lillooet will do a lot of great things, you know, in the up and coming 4 years. This Saturday is our strategic planning day at the district, and then we'll go right into learning about the budget. So that's always fun, right? I'm excited to be a part of this team at the SLRD. It's going to be a learning experience, and just being a part of that bigger picture, like the Squamish-Lillooet corridor as well. It's actually a bit daunting, actually, but it's quite an honor. I look forward to working with all of you for the next 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Much the same, new council, strategic planning, training, all that stuff's going on, same sort of thing. We've had some change and some consistency, so it'll be an exciting crew to work with. But outside of new council, we've had some really exciting water main blow ups. That's been fun. We've really kicked off our OCP review process right now, so we're deep in it now, which is great. I get really excited by that, so that's fun to watch and be part of. And it was a beautiful fall and great to see people out doing some early season skating on 1 mile, and yeah, pretty much it.
Awesome, thank you. Did you want to add anything, Chris?
No.
Director Rainbow, I totally missed you over there.
No, you didn't.
Your tender wasn't deliberate.
You did this. It's after the Lord Mayor show, you know.
Tying up the southern end of the board.
Of the region. And I was thinking, I often have, I'm whinging and whining about things that are not being done properly, but I've got some positive things today. 3 things that relate to First Nations. One, we have a new park in Britannia. It's taken a long time to get it done, but it's done now, or we're almost finished. And the little committee that organized it wanted to name it rather than just a playground. They wanted to have a name for it, and they wanted to have First Nations involved in that naming process. So that led to conversations with Craig and with Andrew Belsham about how we should go about that, because there are going to be a number of new playgrounds and parks in Area D and possibly in other areas of the region. And I thought it's important that we keep that in mind when we're going through a process to develop a name, because what we want to, or we do want to set, we will be setting a precedent. So in conversation with Craig, what we decided to do is go ahead with the Britannia Beach Park and to eventually bring back a report to staff. And this is what we did, this is how we got there, and recommendations for how we might go about this in the future. So the community associations already contacted Squamish Nations, working with them, and there'll be some money involved, and I'll be bringing that to EAD for the grant to cover that. But anyway, so that's ongoing. Second thing, we passed a motion to spend some money on plaques to celebrate the Akasam House Sound UNESCO biosphere. So we're going to have one of them on the beach at Furry Creek, one of them at the end of the spit at Furry Creek, and one in Britannia Beach, location to be determined. But and they're going to be bronze plaques that will last rather than sort of plastic things which maybe would last for 10 years or so, but these things will last 50 years. They're expensive, but they'll last 50 years. And they're going to be mounted on rocks. And I've got McDonald's Corporation in Britannia are going to provide the rock and all the installation for us. Fine Piece are going to find the rock in Furry Creek and the installation. So we're covering some of the costs that way. Ruth Simons has engaged Diane Mitchell, who used to work for the Mine Museum, as a consultant to sort of stick handle this whole process. And she is working with the Squamish Nation right now because we want to have a chasm on there and there's a dispute right now as the correct spelling of that word, you know. So we want to make sure the nation are on board and we get it right. And there's a couple of other references as well that to not so much in their language, but sort of to activity by the nation in that area. So that's ongoing. And then the third thing is last year we finished the installation of a new observation platform deck on the spit at Furry Creek, and beautiful views of the sound there. So we want to put in two the photographic signs, you know, where you sort of look there and it shows you the names of the mountains and the islands and so on. And again, we're going to engage with the nation there to have them suggest some things that we would include, which would reflect how that area was used by the nation in the past. So those three things are ongoing, and you'll get reports on them when they're concluded. But I just thought I'd tell you right now that we are doing it. And then the other thing I wanted to do, one was gloat about my lovely holiday in Mexico, but, and to comment on the activities of two of my neighbors who are residents of Area D. One of them is president of a mining company. And part of our holiday was we went into northern Sinaloa, right into the mountains, into a little Mexican village there, and visited his area of and so on and so forth. But in the village, his wife, who has taken a leave of absence from her teaching job, lives down there with him. She is engaged with the schools there, and they didn't have any computers. So she has, over the last 2 years, managed to equip 5 schools with computer labs. She's used contacts in North Vancouver, in the schools there, to raise money. The mining companies put money into it, and so on and so forth. And the mayor of the town said, you can't just give these kids computers. They've got to do something to earn them. And our town's a mess. And my suggestion is that they clean it up. So she has developed this system where the kids, 2 or 3 schools at a time, have a town cleanup, and they're out there with plastic bags and they're picking up all sorts of junk and everything like that. And they wanted a motto. They wanted something. So I brought this to show you. Their motto they came up with in English was "Together we are more." And so they translated that into Spanish. And so when we were down there, we spent a whole morning with about 400 kids, all wearing these T-shirts and scurrying around and picking up junk and then we went to the presentation of computers to one of the schools, which was wonderful. And one of the outcomes of that is the mayor of the town decided, hey, I should do something else to sort of build on this. And so in the downtown area, downtown's a bit, you know, that's a bit grandiose, but the main street in the center of the place, he is now employing people, most of them women, who otherwise didn't have a job, to sweep the streets and clean up. And so the whole place has had a sort of a facelift. And largely because of the vision of this resident of Area D. So there you go. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I did want to add one piece to the chair's report. I don't remember how long ago, it was 2 weeks ago, we attended, Director Mack and I attended the opening of the new solid waste transfer station in the industrial park here in Pemberton. And it is an incredibly beautiful garbage facility. Like it's nice.
Now you need some staff shirts.
It's a great facility. We can, people can drive in there. They know exactly where to put their stuff. But I think it's also a testament to the relationship that staff have built in this community with the village of Pemberton and with the Lillooet Nation. And it reminds me that something we do on our agenda is territorial acknowledgement. And I think it's very, very important that when we're sitting in this room, we are acknowledging that we are here on the unceded territory of the Lillooet people. And while when we're on a Zoom meeting and we acknowledge that we're on the collective territories of all of the First Nations within our regional boundaries, and I think that stands for something. I think when we're in this room, we acknowledge that we're here with the Lillooet people, and we're in the spirit of New Quantual, we are working together. And I don't want to end the meeting without saying that, because I think it's very important. So I wanted to mention the transfer facility, and I encourage you all to go and see it. And there's a rotating space there that can take clean mattresses. There's a space there, so it will rotate through different types of solid waste, which I think is really valuable to the whole region. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that partnership is really important, and we're lucky to have that. So that's a great thing. Thank you for reminding me to mention that.
Can I just add something?
Yeah.
I just happened, when I was in the village, I just happened to be wearing a Britannia Beach Fire Department t-shirt, which those guys gave me. And so the mayor said to me, we want to start a fire department. So can you help us get a fire truck? So I said to Russell today, do you know anybody that's got a free fire truck that we can ship off down there?
I'll drive it.
Yeah. All right, with that, let's carry on in our agenda to correspondence for action. That being the request for support from the air quality and forest fires. I think we would want to receive and refer to staff.
Motion to receive.
Motion to receive and refer to staff. Seconded by Director Crompton. Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
But I'll just add, I totally agree with this gentleman's thoughts.
Yeah. It's a tricky one. Okay, 11.2. This is from the Statland Committee, powwow request for funding of $3,052.31 from the electoral area B for the facility rental and insurance. Do you want to take that?
Yes, I was really pleased to receive this request. I'm really happy that the Statlium have pulled together their little committee, and they're pretty enthusiastic about doing something this year. As you can see, it's somewhat scaled down, but it's huge compared to what we've been doing after a couple of years of COVID and so on. And so, and actually, following on Sheriff Ward's comments, I meant to acknowledge that I attended the inaugural meeting of the District of Lillooet, and I was quite impressed with the participation of the Statlium at that meeting, doing a welcoming song and so forth. And the neighboring chiefs, well, one of them, the other one wasn't able to come, but still welcoming and acknowledging and talking about some of the shared interests. I thought that was very cool. And this would be, it's at this meeting because it's a request for $3,052.31 to come out of the Area B payment in lieu of taxes fund, which requires board approval.
Thank you. So moved by Director Bridgewater.
It's not an EAD delegated thing.
We're gonna go through these tomorrow
Yes.
to figure out where and when these have to come to the board and when they don't.
Select.
I support it, fully support
Totally,
it.
yeah.
So I'll second it.
Second. Any further comments? Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. And just to explain to Director Rainbow, it came in after the EAD, or we would have seen it first. But nevertheless, I still think payment in lieu of taxes was the appropriate fund for this money to come from. So I'm glad to talk about it here.
At 11.3 is a request for funding from the Lillooet District Rescue Society Energy Efficiency Heat Pump Upgrade.
I don't think this needs much of an explanation. I'd like to move that $11,740 from the Area B Northern Area payment in lieu of taxes money go towards these heat pumps for the Lillooet and District Rescue Society.
Thank you. Seconded by Director Crompton. Comments? Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we're gonna recess. We're gonna take a group photo. We haven't had one for years. And then we're gonna have lunch, and then we're gonna come back and do a delegation at 1 o'clock. And then we're gonna talk for a few more hours about the other stuff. Being in this room for so long.
There's a roller on it.
He's mobile, just.
He's at the adventure center.
Yeah.
Room's unmuted.
Like it's perfect.
This is when he got.
8 kilometers past it, logging trucks on it now, and it was wet.
Yeah.
All right,
That's my ask, is to get that on that section. So they're gonna go.
What do we do now, Chair?
what are we doing now? We've got a 1 o'clock delegation. Let's bring them in.
Telling you, I have a slingshot. It's better than the gavel.
You do.
I have a slingshot. It says Elmer on my kid's bought it for me.
You have a Nerf gun.
Not good.
Okay, tomorrow, I'll bring it tomorrow. Right in the forehead. Okay. With the suction cup on it. All right, so we're calling this meeting back to order, and we have Brenda Keats from Sea to Sky, Sea to Sky Social Services. Sea to Sky Community Services joining us, and did we have Jay joining us as well? Brenda, do you know if Jay is joining us? Okay. Oh, you're muted.
Yes, I understand that she is joining us.
We'll let her in when we see her.
Okay.
But without further delay, I will turn the floor over to you for your presentation.
Thank you so much. Madam Chair and Regional Directors, good afternoon. Thank you for taking some minutes with us today. I hope Jay is able to join us. Jay is the Executive Director of Sea to Sky Community Services, which is a charity, as you know, that operates up and down the Sea to Sky corridor, offering programs and services to families and individuals who are struggling with all manner of things, including homelessness. They run a couple of food hubs. They're building houses across the corridor for people who would otherwise have challenges with housing. They run a daycare center out of Squamish, and they have a number of other services. I think 40 programs in all that they run on behalf of families and communities in the corridor. Most recently, Sea to Sky Community Services was awarded the dubious honor, I think, of becoming the backbone agency on behalf of a new foundry, which will be opening in Squamish in the new year. Foundry is a program of the government of British Columbia. Foundries are being established across the province to offer health and mental health services to young people between the ages of 10 and 24. Focused on substance use and addiction, mental health and wellness, sexual issues of sexual orientation. They have 5 program streams. If Jay was here, she could speak to you more specifically about those. But that building is currently being constructed in Squamish and will be opening hopefully very early in the new year to offer services to youth. In the meantime, I have been asked to pull together a small team to be kind of an advanced guard for the region, to think about how youth health and mental health services might be extended beyond the bricks and mortar building in Squamish to reach young people who would otherwise not be able to take advantage of the supports and services that are being offered there. So we have been working diligently to do that, and Director Rainbow suggested that it would be very useful as an information item for the regional district to just have a heads up and also an invitation to participate with us in this endeavor. There's Jay. Hi, Jay. We started without you, so please just catch up as possible. So what we are doing actually is we are doing a series of interviews and partnership development pieces across the corridor to try to think about how services might be extended to youth beyond the bricks and mortar building in Squamish. And we are finding multiple challenges and opportunities with this work. The first is that there are multiple service providers, as you know, in the corridor working with young people in various capacities. They aren't necessarily working in tandem with one another all the time. So there are both duplications and gaps in the service provision across the corridor. There's also kind of multiple definitions of what it is to be a member of the Sea to Sky corridor. So the geography for designing outbound services is something that we're having to think about pretty hard and early on in this process, because as you know, it includes government boundaries, health service boundaries, Indigenous community boundaries and territories, community identity, federal and provincial funder boundaries, and also this kind of odd thing that we're discovering in our research that's kind of the economic development tourism boundaries, and they're not necessarily synonymous. And in order for us to do this work well, we're going to have to pick one to be the kind of boundary for the conversation about outbound services. Second, Foundry BC, which is supporting the Sea to Sky Squamish-based bricks and mortar building, is a single funder, and to extend services up and down the corridor, and particularly to the more remote Indigenous communities in the corridor, is going to require priority setting, new partnerships, and the identification of different sources of year-over-year funding to allow that work to go forward and to be consistent and excellent in such a wide and diverse geography. The third is that we know, you know better than I do, that the communities and therefore the needs in the corridor are not homogeneous. This means that in the design of outbound services for youth and the setting of priorities that match the capacities of funders and the capacities of institutions and agencies, we're going to have to be very careful about the way priorities are set and the pacing at which new programs and services are introduced. Because as Jay is the first to say, the last thing we want to be doing is creating a situation where new services are being introduced and then are having to be pulled back because they can't be sustained over time. So it's a tricky dance. We recognize that in this work, there are also significant pressures on service providers right now, including post-COVID staffing shortages, recruitment and retention issues in the corridor related to housing and wages, rapidly growing and shifting demographics in your region, and the ongoing challenges with Indigenous, non-Indigenous program integration and interpretation of who's on first, that all have to be taken into account. Most recently, my team and I completed a roadshow just last week where we met with about 250 young people in various settings in the corridor, including classrooms in the high school and middle schools, youth groups, clubs, lunch and special needs clubs, and drop-in centers, because we wanted to get youth perspective early on in this process on the priority issues and needs for service in the corridor. So through their eyes, what did they see as the priority needs for support around their health and wellness? And the second question we asked them was, what were their challenges with access? And I'm just sifting through 250 interviews. We came away from that week incredibly full. So I'm not going to provide you with any statistics at this time, but I'm going to provide you with some first impressions about your young people in the corridor. And so sort of 6 things. The first is drugs, weed, prescription drugs, and mushrooms in particular, vaping, marijuana and nicotine in particular, and high levels of alcohol use are seen by almost all the kids in your region as threats to their health and well-being at this time. This is becoming particularly problematic among kids as young as 12. as access to particularly marijuana is getting increasingly easy. And with the legalization of marijuana in the new year, we think that that is going to continue to be a priority challenge, not just for young people in the Sea to Sky corridor, but they're naming that as a #1 issue that requires attention, both through schools and through service groups. The second is family issues. Most of the kids talk to us about the ongoing impacts from COVID-19, creating challenges in many households. Food shortages, stress about work, increasing hours of work, parents having to be away from home longer, and the fact that still that the uncertainty of the future in many households has not allowed many families to return to some kind of normal functioning, which is creating a real sense of stress and anxiety in many of the young people. The third, probably related to the first and second, is suicide ideation, often manifested through self-harm, cutting, eating disorders, and danger games. We heard some scary stuff, are becoming more common, particularly in the sort of grades 7, 8, 9, not exclusively, but significantly. Bullying and cyberbullying, including sexual predation and victimization, has become quite normalized, almost to the point where it's become like a party game to victimize people on social media in many places and with many of the kids, which is causing high levels of anxiety, obviously, and is related to all of the above. I'm not going to say how many, but many young people expressed not having a sense of belonging, safety, and identity at this time, leading to loneliness and isolation. And interestingly enough, currently, what they express to us is that when they're in need of support and service and assistance, they are tending to turn more to their peers than they are to their families or to professionals. And we think all those things are interrelated. They're not distinct, but I would venture to say that some of them are actually sort of at a crisis level. And we're trying to sift through all of that information to make some sense of it and feed it back to the region in a way that's helpful and useful. On the plus side, the young people we met demonstrated incredible compassion for each other, incredible, beyond anything I've seen in my professional life. They were able to articulate a very nuanced understanding in most cases of the relationship between trouble at home and turning to substances, feeling like they wanted to kill themselves and not having a sense of place. They were able to kind of create these very nuanced webs of understanding well beyond their age, really, in many cases, of the interrelationship between how they were feeling and what was happening in their world and in their surroundings. And we were able to readily turn them in all cases, even in some of the most difficult conversations, from this kind of place of melancholy and life's terrible and it sucks and I hate I'm worried about my future, to a real kind of solution-focused way of thinking. And in that work, highlighted by the youth, and I think some of this is really important for the regional district to be thinking about, particularly as you come up to budget time, the opportunities for recreation. The kids expressed over and over again in every setting that we were in, the need for more opportunities for recreation, and especially recreation that was year-round, less expensive and less competitive. So very interested in dance classes and art classes and outdoor hiking and mountain climbing and rock climbing and those kinds of activities that didn't involve a whole lot of money and didn't mean that you had to be a star athlete in order to be successful. Tons of interest in that, and in most places, kids expressing the fact that there wasn't nearly enough of that. And where it did exist, restricted hours of use were really hampering their ability to take advantage of a lot of those opportunities. The second thing was the need for more venues and avenues where they could seek help, including online, and better communications around service opportunities and availability. So the kids were feeling in lots of cases that they just didn't know where to go to get help. And again, related to the fact that many of the service provision agencies are short-staffed, there are some real serious gaps in people being available to be there for these kids when they need them. Improved role modeling. I don't know how you tackle that one as an issue, but the kids talked quite extensively, particularly with the seasonal staff coming into the region in places like Whistler, that the need for much more positive role models for the younger kids was really important. That the sort of the sense that it was okay to be in party mode all the time was not creating a good base of understanding or support or encouragement for these kids to behave differently. And they all called for more controls and more education on social media use, on substances, and on suicide prevention. So they all recognized the need for more kind of adult intervention, if you will, particularly in those areas. Our work will be continuing over the next several months. Our next big piece of work is to bring together service providers for a design thinking process based on the research and evaluation that we're doing now and over the course of the winter. We're very hopeful that the regional district will be interested in participating in that in some way, sending a representative or a staff member to be part of that conversation, because what we hope will come out of it is at least one or two very clear opportunities for collaborative development of new opportunities for young people in the corridor. And for the regional district, thinking particularly around enhanced parks, recreation, and transportation as possible ways that your work could really contribute in a positive way, as well as the ongoing need for space, the demand for space through which to operate some of these programs and services for young people. So that's the end of my presentation. Jay, I don't know, you joined us a bit late. I explained very briefly about Sea to Sky and how this work was situated, but I don't know if you want to add anything more.
Good afternoon. My apologies for the delay. I was coming out of another meeting, so thank you for welcoming me into the space. The only top up I would bring, Brenda, is just the context of Sea to Sky Community Services within the regional district. We've been operating in the Sea to Sky corridor for over 40 years, employing 173 staff and operating just under a $60 million operating revenue for an annual purpose, providing 41 programs up and down the corridor as far south as Britannia Beach and into the northern communities of our First Nations communities in Lillooet and Statlian Nations. So I think to the context as well of where we're situating, I think many of you, including Tony Rainbow, Russell Mack, Mayor Richmond, and many of the mayors around the table, whether that's Jack Crompton and the new Armin Herford, have heard me present to you over the last 2.5 years that since COVID has presented itself in the Sea to Sky corridor, we are seeing growing needs among different populations. And I think Brenda put it very beautifully, that demographics are changing in our region. And the needs of youth are presenting in ways that we never imagined, and in critical ways that we never imagined. On the heels of that, Sea to Sky Community Services at the beginning of the pandemic in April of 2020 was successful in receiving a grant from Foundry BC to build and operate a Foundry Center out of Squamish. We quickly realized later that year that our scope of services couldn't be just specific to Squamish. that eventually we would have to regionalize based on the fact that Foundry would only be giving one grant to the Sea to Sky region, and that we would have to look for ways to collaborate with our community, listen to youth, and work with service providers and partners like yourselves to really understand what it would mean to bring Foundry services beyond Squamish, beyond the bricks and mortar space that we're hoping to open in the spring. We've been a little bit delayed with labor shortages of late, but we're hoping to open up in February. But what I think we're learning too, as well through Brenda's work, is Foundry may not be the whole answer to this question. We have a beautiful suite of services that's offered under this model, whether that's mental health and substance use supports, primary care, social services, peer support, that may not be the end of where these services can support our youth and community. And that's where we need to dig in to other supports, whether, as Brenda says, through recreational means or others, to really understand where we need to situate healthy and productive communities that can support youth with these growing concerns and really set them up for the best success in their lives. So we're really looking forward, and we're obviously grateful to be in the incredible, gifted and talented hands of Brenda and her team. Looking forward to continuing to work with them as they're situating themselves in this research, but also working with all of you to collaborate. We've been so grateful for Tony Rainbow and his support, and obviously the funding support that the SLRD provided in the bricks and mortar space here in Squamish, $140,000 support on the capital side. But just the conversations and the expertise and the knowledge that all of you bring to this conversation is something that we're really looking forward to continuing. So maybe I'll hold it there and open the floor to any questions to Brenda and I. And again, apologies for being a little late.
That's okay. We are late for our next delegation, so I do have time for one question, and then we can take questions offline and get them to you, Jay. Thanks. Go ahead.
I got it. Thanks, Brenda and Jay. Just because we're out of time, I'll be really quick. With regards to the research you're doing, Brenda, the Collaborative for Mental Health and Substance Abuse a number of years ago did some really great work in terms of trying to bring mental health services together up and down the corridor. Identified, like you have, that there were lots of services being provided, but not necessarily in tandem. And so a big focus of their work was trying to bring those services together and make them more available. I don't know if you're familiar with the work they did, or if I would really recommend having a look at it, because some great work was done by mental health service providers. At that time, they came up with something called Plan Y, which was an app for youth to be able to access mental health services in a way, and it was presented to a number of the high schools at the time and really well received. So, maybe to work with some of that work that's been done and not as well. I really highly recommend you have a look at that, because I think it aligns with the work you're already trying to do.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Great tip. I will follow up with Jay on that.
Thanks for doing that work. It's important stuff.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. And thank you to you both for being here today and for the service to our communities. It is tremendous work that you do. And we will see you again soon.
Take care. Thank you.
Right. 9.2. The information report regarding the Wild Safe BC program update, and we have Mary Lou LeBlanc here. Welcome.
Thank you. So Marie-Lou LeBlanc, Business Recovery Coordinator. Staff is here today to introduce you to Devin Paddock, who will be presenting and giving you a report on the 2022 Wild Safe BC program. This is the third year this year. So Devin, leave it to you.
Hey, can everyone hear me? Yeah, awesome. All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Devin. I'm the Wild Safe BC coordinator for the regional district, and super thankful to be invited to talk to you guys today. For those unaware, Wild Safe BC provides outreach and education to residents with the goal of reducing negative encounters or conflict with wildlife. So our motto is keeping wildlife wild and communities safe. And like Mary Lou said, this is the third year we've been holding this program in the SLRD, and my third year on board. And I thought I'd take a couple moments here to just share with you the results of the season. Usually I start off this presentation showing a little bit of Conservation Officer Service reporting data, and that's a good reflection of where we can prioritize our initiatives in terms of what species, educational material we want to target, and where. Unfortunately, internally in the government, the department who operates this data has been shifting hands, and there's a software issue, so we don't have access to display quite as good visual material like graphs and the data. But I had a quick look through our wildlife alert reporting system this morning to kind of talk briefly about what I see from what I can see. And black bears remain the most reported species of encounter and in conflict in the SLRD. And in Area D, like north, so Upper Squamish Valley, we're getting a lot more reports of grizzly bears coming through. So people are expressing that they're seeing a lot more grizzlies in their yard and having some conflicts, that they're being attracted through various food sources, mainly fruit trees and residential backyard operations in terms of agriculture activities. And so future initiatives should focus maybe on easing the people's minds in the valley there, providing some educational workshops, and bringing more understanding to this species. The same is true, I think, for cougars in Area B. There's been a few cougar in reports that have populated recently, so we can do the same for there maybe next year. Unfortunately, that's kind of as deep as I can go into the data at this point. Hopefully next year they'll fix that issue. Next slide, please. So to start off, talk a little bit about social media. This year, we increased the frequency of postings on our Facebook page, WildSafe BC Squamish-Lillooet RD, to tri-weekly posts 3 times a week. And so these were shared from the provincial main social media page and either shared as is or altered to fit locally relevant information in it. Our page grew again this year, up 3%, which is not too bad. And we would share various types of information. Every Wild Wednesday, we show a video of a species of interest. And we also increased the amount of press release and news articles that WildSafe BC SLRD put out there this season. So thank you for the SLRD for releasing that initial press release announcing the return of the program. We were also supported by the BRV newspaper and the Squamish Chief. The BRV newspaper shared some infographic material on fawning season for deer and the cost share program that I'll talk to you a little bit about later regarding electric fencing. And the Chief put out some information in the fall when bear activity was ramping up on how to reduce conflict with bears. Next slide, please. Again, I was out in the community doing some presentations to community groups. This season, I was able to become certified and lead some electric fencing workshops, which is really exciting to bring forward as a tool and a resource for this, this program. And the bear safety and awareness, which is targeted to more new people to the area, people who may not have very much wildlife education in general. I synthesized that down from a 2-hour presentation and added a bear spray component to bring really relevant information and useful tools in a shortened duration of a presentation, so about 1 hour. And we did 3 of those as well. Next slide, please. When I'm not organizing workshops and the logistics around that, an easy way for me to get out into the communities through display booths. So everyone on the call, I'd encourage you to reach out next season. And if you have outreach events in your communities and farmers markets, for example, I'd be happy to pop in and connect with everybody. This year, the Pemberton Farmers Market and Lillooet Farmers Markets are really reliable go-to display booth opportunities that I use regularly. And kind of pepper in some other opportunities as I can. I spoke to over 500 people, and it is usually just general outreach and educational material. I have flyers with me, and people can come up and we can facilitate a discussion about whatever questions they might have. Next slide, please. I also helped the Conservation Officer Service install wildlife and area signs upon request from them. So I have a number of these signs at my home here with different species, but I'll only put them up upon request of the COS. So this year they requested I put barren area signs in Pemberton around the Mackenzie FSR trail network in August, following a few dangerous encounters with a sow who was very defensive and protective of her 2 cubs. The encounters and the reports started to become more and more dangerous sounding, and more aggressive behaviors were displayed. When the conservation officers arrived on scene, the sow reportedly attacked their truck. And upon consultation with the biologist, it was deemed that destruction was the necessary method of action in that case. So the sow was euthanized, unfortunately, but the cubs were left. And a biologist was monitoring them, and they were fending for themselves, eating on their own, being able to find food sources. So they were left in the area. And those signs stay up for as long as the COS recommends. In this case, it was 2 weeks. That's because people do become blind to the signs and start disregarding them if they're just left in the area for too long. And at the same time, I also put up this mountain biking and bear safety and camping in wildlife country infographics beside them. We also, new to this year, spent a lot of time and effort in our electric fencing cost share program. This arose out of a pilot project within Pemberton Meadows that was launched last year. Now this was SLRD wide this year, which was really exciting. It was funded by the SLRD and administered by WildSafe BC. So part of the budget, $2,000, was absorbed through administration fees, a very small amount. And then we elected to divide the remaining budget into 4 buckets for each electoral area, and they were equally spread out. And so all areas were supported through this, and the program was supported through educational workshops. So I facilitated workshops in Lillooet, Pemberton, and Squamish. We have 3 fences that were installed through subsidy funding through the program, and 10 residents are currently on a wait list for next season. Some difficulties we experienced early on was the funding for Area C was used really quickly. And so when further residents expressed interest in the program, we were unable to provide funding for them because their area had already received all the funding, exhausted their funding. And so towards the end of the season, we opened up the funding again to anyone. And we were able to put up another fence through that. But yeah, like I said, there's a lot of interest, and we have a great wait list for next season of people who want to hop on board. And I'm still receiving emails weekly about who are inquiring about the cost share program. So it's a really good, cost-effective, reliable, and safe tool. And I'm glad that the message is getting spread throughout the communities here. Next slide, please. So I also work part-time for Coast to Cascades Grizzly Bear Initiative, who is a non-for-profit, non-governmental organization who's dedicated to restoring and protecting the grizzly bear populations of Southwest BC. They're highly involved in Pemberton Meadows, and separately, I put up 7 subsidized fences in Pemberton Meadows through them. And when they heard about the WildSafe BC initiative, they also provided some cost share support as well to reopen that bucket for residents around grizzly bear habitat that Coast Cascades is well involved with in the communities there. So Pemberton Meadows, Pemberton Portage Road, the Stein Valley, and the Bridge River Valley areas. And so here's an example of a chicken coop that the electrification of which was subsidized through WildSafe BC cost share program. Next slide, please. We also were able to connect with the Hoyston band who attended our electric fencing workshop in Lillooet. And so 3 members came out, they were super keen and expressed that they learned a lot about electric fencing. And they thought it might be a great application and a great tool for them to use for their fish drying racks during the fall season when they're fishing. They dry the fish on racks outdoors, and they experience loss to bears and other wildlife. And so I'm working with the community coordinator within the band to help bring education and resources to the band there. Next slide, please. So garbage and fruit trees are still the #1 and 2 attractants that are luring wildlife into the communities and thus turning encounters into conflict. So as per previous seasons, the same recommendations remain true, and that is to just continue hammering out the message on securing your attractants and prioritizing education initiatives to address these issues. And that means also with this great electric fencing workshop that we have, I have a kit with an energizer and a demonstration electric fence and a full grounding system that we spread out onto the lawn that we can see in this picture here. And people get a hands-on idea of what an electric fencing actually is. They learn a lot more about it. So that's a great tool that we can use for residents who are experiencing conflict with their attractants that are not able to be managed in other ways. Things like small livestock and chickens. Next question, slide, please. Continuing to encourage reporting is always good so that that data can come in and we can use that and work with the COS to address issues early on. We see a reluctance to report sometimes as people misunderstand the operations of the Conservation Officer Service, are not aware that there are procedures involved and protocols to lots of tools in place to mitigate conflict, and that destruction and euthanasia is really the last resort when all other options have been utilized. And it's on me to continue to check in frequently with the COS. We only have a handful of officers through the Sea to Sky area, and the population to officer ratio is just not sustainable. And they get swamped, and I think although they know that I'm available resource, they don't have the time necessarily to connect. So I'd like to continually connect and check in with them regularly so that we're best supporting our officers with this program. And it'll help guide where I should be providing this outreach and education. Next slide, please. Just a short and sweet summary from me today. I just want to thank everybody for your attention and your time today. It's always nice to connect with everybody in the room. And for those who I haven't had a chance to meet yet, I'm looking forward to bumping into everybody. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. And excellent presentation. Any questions? No questions? Go ahead, Director Birch-Jones.
Just as always, Devin, I'm really happy with the work that you're doing at Area B. I didn't realize that we had the wait list on those fences. And if I'd like to consider, I would like to, that seems like a very low cost way to prevent a whole bunch of wildlife conflict. That seems like a very good thing to invest in. So I'd like to hear more about that for Area B in the future. Your workshop was well attended and had a lot of good spin-offs. And so if there's places that are needing, I mean, we've got some very threatened grizzly bear populations to start with in our area, but all of the wildlife, if they really benefit from that preventive technique, I'd like to support it more.
Awesome. I'd love to connect with you one-on-one, and we can go over a game plan on how to best deliver that.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much, and we will see you again soon.
Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a motion to receive the report moved by Director Richmond, seconded by Director Stoner. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. There's no late business? Yep, what?
What's the best way if we have questions about the previous presentation to forward them to you or to Craig or?
Yeah, to both of us, I think is fine. Craig, you fine with that?
Yes. I'm just wondering, there was, on the agenda, there was a specific ask out of the Seasca Community Services bit.
To send the.
Yeah, did we,
Design committee or?
yeah, I didn't,
Yeah, through the chair, I'd recommend that we follow up direct and define what that looks like.
Yeah.
okay, yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Thanks.
And
Yeah,
it's a February is set on it, so we do have a little bit of time.
okay, there's no late business. Does any, are there any notice of motion? No? Okay, can I have someone move that we reclose to the public? Moved by Director Herford, seconded by Director Fitz Jones. Anyone opposed? Motion